A diverse nation of multicultural freedom, a land of cold, long winters, maple syrup, and gold medal winning hockey players. The United States neighbor to the north is the world's second largest country and a place that is defined by its diversity. But a breeding ground for homegrown terrorists? Last year, terror touched Canada for the first time in decades. On October 22nd, a 24-year-old soldier was shot and killed in cold blood by an alleged Islamic State supporter while standing guard outside a war memorial ceremony in the country's capital city. Prime Minister Stephen Harper vowed to take a stand against extremist ideologies.
We will not be intimidated. Canada will never be intimidated.
This month marks a milestone in Canadian history as two controversial anti-terror bills will officially be passed as law. From signing petitions to holding organized protests, those these laws will affect most have not stood idly by. Also, an important battleground for upcoming federal elections in October. The Strengthening Canadian Citizenship Act and the Anti-Terrorism Act could potentially change what it means to be Canadian. Our focus this week is on Canada.
Welcome to our Focus on Canada. The Canadian House of Commons passed two controversial legislations recently. The anti-terrorism bill gives the government more power to foil suspected terrorist plots, and the second bill allows the government to revoke Canadian citizenship from dual citizens who are convicted of terrorism. Now, let's hear about the difficulties these legislations are facing from Member of Parliament John McCallum from the Liberal Party. Hello to you, sir.
Pleasure to be with you.
So the two bills that have passed recently in the Parliament with your party's support are facing criticism. What do you have to say against the accusations?
I would say I'm proud of our position. The Liberal Party was in power at the time of 9/11. We have introduced anti-terror legislation at that time, but we were careful to preserve individual freedoms. Now, again, the government is introducing legislation. We think elements of it do help to protect Canadians. For example, preventative arrests. There's evidence that had that measure been in place, the individual who killed a Canadian soldier would have been arrested before he did the deed. But the second element is we also want to preserve individual rights and freedoms.
And speaking of elections, it seems that it is going to be a three-party race with an unpredictable outcome. I wanted to ask you, what aspects is the Liberal Party about to emphasize in its campaign?
Well, we are very much focused on supporting middle-class Canadians who've had a bit of a raw deal in recent years and decades. And one of the major parts of our platform is we will put real money into the pockets of middle-class families with children, and we want to return to democracy in this country.
How would you describe the spirit that Justin Trudeau had injected into the Liberal Party since he was appointed as leader?
Well, I think he's doing a fantastic job. All of us are 100% united behind him. So all of us are proud to serve under him, and we think he'll do great in the upcoming campaign.
John McCallum, thank you for being on our show.
Thank you very much. Enjoyed it.
More than 1.4 million people in Canada identify as Aboriginals. Every June, Canadians celebrate National Aboriginal History Month, which is an opportunity to honor their heritage and culture. More than a century ago, the Canadian government attempted to assimilate the Aboriginals through the introduction of European principles and Christianity. This ended up with Aboriginals being isolated on reserves. And now we're joined by Mr. Larry Frost, Executive Director of the Native Canadian Centre of Toronto. Hi, sir.
Well, hello there too. Welcome.
So tell us, what parts of the Aboriginal culture are being celebrated throughout this special Awareness Month, and what is the significance of it?
Well, it's a celebration. I'll give you a little bit of history. We've always had June 21st as Aboriginal Day, but the government now has given us the month of June as an Aboriginal Day for celebration. So we have a celebration, like ourselves here at the Native Canadian Centre of Toronto, we have a celebration at Dundas Square here in Toronto for the whole day, where we share our traditional teachings, our dancing, beadwork, our teachings with the crafts, and we have we have a lot of people coming in from out of town and tourists and people that just really want to learn about our culture. So we're honored to share our culture with them.
And what benefits does the Canadian government provide to the Native Canadians, and are they sufficient?
No, the monetary funding that we deserve, especially in our education on our reserves, is really way below the from the non-Aboriginal population. So no, the funding as far as our programs, we can't drink our own water up north. We have a third world country up north. The people that travel up north, and sometimes you have to fly in. The cost of sending in lumber, food up north is almost twice the cost that you would pay here in Toronto.
And do you believe that your community could have done something different, maybe anything different in the past, so that today you would be living under better conditions?
No, I don't believe we could have done it. Now, if we're going back to 1867, I'm saying the way things were handled, the way our chiefs had signed things, and I'll be quite honest with you, I believe that with the alcohol, it had a lot of bearings when our chiefs at times were probably intoxicated and signed things they weren't even aware of what they were signing, because the settlers know what to do, because we never had alcohol at all in those early days.
And according to local media and official reports, there is an overwhelming Aboriginal majority within the cases of murders and disappearances of women. How can that be explained?
Yes, there is, and it has been ongoing, but we keep sending our Prime Minister, Harper, that he should be looking at this, but he doesn't feel that it's a government issue. Now, we're coming up for elections here in Canada, so we're hoping that, again, the Harper's no longer there, and we have a different government that will look at the Aboriginal issues.
Thank you for this, Larry.
Well, thank you so much for having me on today. And in my language, miigwech.
And now what else is going on in Canada?
2 Canadians who were detained in Malaysia for posing naked on the country's highest peak have returned home. The Saskatchewan siblings were sentenced to 3 days in jail and fined for obscene behavior in a public place. A local official has said their behavior was disrespectful to the mountain, which is believed to be sacred, and caused an earthquake on June 5th that killed 18 climbers. A motorcycle used to evade police in a movie-like stunt through a suburban Vancouver mall has been seized, and its owner fined $13,000. Even though officers can't identify the driver in the February video of the escapade, they are holding on to the bike pending outcome of a civil hearing. The 58 traffic violations that led to the fine included speeding, disobeying a red light, and driving without insurance. Toyota Canada has recalled 387,000 vehicles with Takata airbags. The airbags have an inflator that can explode in an accident, sending shards of metal into the passenger compartment and killing or injuring people. So far, 7 deaths have been linked to the faulty airbags. One woman was killed 2 days before the recall notice arrived at her home. The Canadian Alliance to End Homelessness has vowed to end homelessness by 2018. Their initiative hopes to put roofs over the heads of 20,000 people in 3 years. The project was inspired by a similar American initiative, which succeeded in finding places to live for more than 100,000 people in the United States over 4 years. Pop star Ed Sheeran surprised fans in an Edmonton shopping mall last week. While a 13-year-old girl was performing a cover of his song Thinking Out Loud as a part of a fundraiser, Sheeran happened to be in the mall and joined her on stage to finish the number as a duet. The singer is in the Canadian city for part of his world tour.
The 2015 FIFA Women's World Cup takes place throughout the month of June in 6 different cities in Canada. The tournament is expected to attract more viewers and spectators than ever. Now the question is, will this be enough to divert the attention from the huge corruption scandal surrounding FIFA? Now let's go over to Karen Larson, an award-winning sports reporter for CBC, who is currently covering the tournament and is now at BC Place in Vancouver. Hello, Karen.
Hi there.
So it seems that the interest in this tournament is bigger than ever. How come?
Well, girls and women's soccer is just really popular in Canada. It is the highest participation sport when you look at girls' sport across the country. And this women's team in particular has been in the headlines in Canada for about 15 years, since they were a U19 team. The star striker, Christine Sinclair, was quite a phenom back then, and so was the goalkeeper, Erin McLeod. So those are 2 athletes that have been in the public eye for a long time. They're both now in their early to mid-30s, and Canadians have been following the progress of this team, and it also helps that the Canadian women's national team won a bronze medal at the London Olympics. They've been very high profile. There's lots of interest in girls and women's soccer in this country, and I think that's how you explain the great interest in the FIFA Women's World Cup.
So how's the Canadian national team been doing so far in the tournament?
Well, that's an interesting question. People here feel like they haven't really played very well, but they did manage to win their group, and yesterday they won their quarterfinal match against Switzerland 1-0. So the Canadian team is off to the quarterfinals. Pardon me, they won their round of 16 game yesterday. So they have advanced to the quarterfinals. The Canadian women's team is ranked 8th in the world, and so they are in the top 8 heading forward in this World Cup.
And Karen, we know that many players complained about the use of artificial pitches in this tournament. Can you maybe tell us about the decision behind that?
Well, this decision goes back. They complained about the decision to put in artificial turf. There are 6 sites for the FIFA Women's World Cup in Canada. In fact, in one of the sites, they ripped out the natural grass to put in the artificial turf because the playing surface across all 6 venues has to be identical. Now, the complaint goes back to the fact that the men would never be expected to play on artificial turf. Artificial turf, for people who follow sport, know that it's much harder on your body, harder on your knees, on your joints as well. And of course, natural grass is the preferred surface for soccer. So the complaint is, you know, it's not fair that the men get to play on natural grass and they expect the women to play on artificial turf. Mind you, once the tournament has started here, we haven't heard a lot about the artificial turf debate. It's kind of fallen by the wayside as the games have started.
And is this tournament diverting the attention from the latest scandal surrounding FIFA or not?
Well, the FIFA scandal was all the talk heading into this tournament, and mostly because a lot of people figured that the FIFA executive, the Sepp Blatters and the top guys, would be coming to Canada, and they were expected to be here. Now, of course, since the scandal broke, those travel plans has been changed. Sepp Blatter has not appeared here in Canada. In fact, the box at his game, the President's box, here behind me at BC Place Stadium, where Canada played Switzerland, was empty yesterday. So the scandal was a big story coming into the tournament. Again, since play started, the competition has really taken over the headlines.
Karen Larson, thank you so much for this.
All right, you're welcome. Thank you.
Marilyn Monroe once said, "Give a girl the right shoes and she can conquer the world." Now imagine what she could have done with more than 13,000 shoes. Such a big collection is available at the Bata Shoe Museum in Toronto, which celebrates its 20th anniversary. Now joining us from the museum is the senior curator, Elizabeth Zemmelhock. Hello, Elizabeth. How are you?
Hello, I'm great.
So, tell us about Sonia Bata, the lucky woman whose husband let her collect all these shoes.
Well, I would put it a little differently. I don't think that Mr. Bata let her collect the shoes. I think that she was dedicated to figuring things out about footwear. You know, she did marry Mr. Bata, and she began to travel around the world and made a very astute observation, which was no matter where she went around the world, people's feet were the same, but what they put on their feet was completely different. And so she was interested in figuring out those differences, and that's when she started collecting.
And tell us about some of the exhibitions that you're currently running there.
Well, we have one permanent gallery space, and what that does, it's called All About Shoes, is it invites the visitor into and sort of gives them a taste of why shoes can be so interesting. And so it's laid out thematically, and so you might look at issues of status in relation to footwear or religious expression in relation to footwear. There's also a discussion of fashion in that gallery. And then we have 3 temporary galleries where we change exhibitions quite frequently. We have an exhibition called Beauty, Identity, and Pride that highlights some of the most important moccasins in our collection. We have an exhibition called Standing Tall, The Curious History of Men in Heels, and that tells the curious history of men in heels.
And what is the most popular pair of shoes that all the visitors want to see in the museum?
Well, I think it's hard to identify a particular pair of shoes that would be the most popular. We certainly get a lot of requests for people to see Elton John's shoes, but I hope that when people come, they will see that actually every shoe in the collection is really quite amazing.
Elizabeth, I gotta go back to the men on heels part. It's still sinking in. Why?
Well, the heel is introduced from Western Asia as a form of horseback riding footwear, and European men were the first to wear heels, and they happily wore heels as elements of fashion for 130 years. And even today, some constructions of rugged masculinity, the cowboy, happily wears high heels. And so this exhibition challenges both our preconceived notions about what wearing heels means and tells really the true history of the heel and its importance in men's fashion.
And how does the diversity of the exhibits represent the multiculturalism of Canada?
Toronto, as you mentioned, is probably one of the most multicultural cities on the planet. And so we have footwear from almost every region of the world, and we can reference some of those multicultural touch points. But more importantly, I think that everyone is welcome and everyone will find footwear from around the world interesting.
I would love to contribute my own shoe to your collection. Thank you so much for this.
Fantastic. Give me a call.
No problem. And thank you all for watching. Now I will take my own pair of shoes, walk out of the studio, and see you all next time.